Some 117 member states joined a call to action on the protection of humanitarian and UN personnel, protections framed in the Geneva Conventions that establish the rules of war, including protections of civilians, aid and medical workers not engaged in the conflict. Inside the chamber, sobering messages from those leading in the humanitarian space.
Other aid workers have been injured, kidnapped, attacked, and arbitrarily detained in countries including Afghanistan, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Ethiopia, Lebanon, Mali, Myanmar, South Sudan, Sudan, Syria, Ukraine, and Yemen. Much of the unprecedented surge in aid worker casualties is due to the situation in Gaza. Since 7 October, more than 330 humanitarian workers have lost their lives. Most of them were UNRWA staff. Some are with their families in their homes. Others were at work in UNRWA offices and shelters. These numbers signal a disturbing lack of regard for the lives of civilians and humanitarian and UN workers. There's no situation in recent history that compares.
Key elements of the Secretary-General's recommendations as requested in a Council resolution in May to enhance protection of humanitarian personnel, including clear condemnation for attacks against aid workers with unequivocal support from the Council and Member States for aid workers and their safety, accountability for perpetrators of crimes against humanitarian workers, including referrals to the International Criminal Court, and support for humanitarian workers who are themselves the victims and survivors of harm.
75th anniversary of the Geneva Conventions, the cornerstone of international humanitarian law, which is now under unprecedented strain. As we look to the next steps on Resolution 2730, we urge the Council to champion action that protects humanitarian and UN personnel, ensures accountability for those who harm them, and helps survivors and families to rebuild their lives. This is a call to reaffirm that respect for international law is non-negotiable. Impunity for crimes against aid workers must end, and their voices deserve to be heard at the highest levels, including here in this chamber.
As UN workers and humanitarian personnel navigate multiple overlapping crises of unprecedented scale, from Haiti to Sudan, Somalia to Lebanon and Gaza, among others.
The conflict has pushed us to the very limits of acceptable risk. The war has inflicted a profound psychosocial toll on UN personnel and their families, including trauma, grief, moral injury, and despair. These effects extend beyond the epicenter, impacting colleagues in the region and around the world. Resolution 2730, adopted in May by this Council, have never been so vital. We need collective action to protect those who dedicate their lives to people in need. Their security is not just a moral obligation. It is essential to the success of the mandates entrusted to us, including by this Council.
The UN's Department of Safety and Security, created almost 2 decades ago in response to a series of catastrophic incidents that claimed the lives of UN staff.
Back then, the UN operated in a handful of high-risk environments, with non-state armed groups posing the main threat. Today, UN operations face greater complexity and greater needs in more high-risk areas and threats to UN and humanitarian personnel, including from state actors.
Urging the international community, led by the Security Council, to speak with moral clarity about the needs for greater protection for aid workers and greater accountability from both state and non-state actors that target them. Sherwin Riceby's SABC News, New York.